Welcome to my world, the world of a medical laboratory scientist. Health is wealth, knowledge is power. Malaria fever and diarrhea co-infections. You have a situation of this existing, especially when you have diarrhea, bacterial colitis, and the malaria fever existing, coexisting, and happening at the same time. Malaria fever on its own is a serious sickness, and when you look at it from what it was called, the nickname of those days, as the white man's grave, which probably explains why the sub-Saharan Africans have earlier independence from the colonial masters. And you now look at even the treatment of malaria fever by adults of these sub-Saharan Africans has been taken mildly. But in sincerity, when there is a co-infection, it could be life-threatening. And that is exactly my experience of recent. And the experience really shows bacterial colitis and the malaria fever happening almost simultaneously. The colitis had first come into existence, but the malaria fever then took advantage or took control of everything, and the rate, the speed at which my health deterioration went, I was shocked because I couldn't believe that malaria fever could deal with me that much. It's that experience I want to share in this video. I may not be able to go to the slide section because I still feel practically needing more time to recuperate. Yes, malaria fever, once it penetrates, it goes straight to the liver. That's where it more or less resides, and make effort to enter into the bloodstream. And once it's in the bloodstream, the body reacts with inflammatory response, fever, and that's the experience of fever that we have. But this fever could become something else when these parasites start blocking the flow of oxygen and nutrients into the different cells and organs. So the organs becomes affected. But it does not really shows much problem for people, adults in this environment. And that is probably why we are still probably not afraid of malaria parasite infection. But one thing that struck me most is when bacterial colitis now appears like diarrhea. The diarrhea will come out as watery stool, but the colitis is slimy. You see it, but if that's when you are able to examine it in macroscopically, when it is passed out in a bottle. But where you don't know, you may not even have the mindset of doing the culture to really know whether it's bacterial infection that is really destroying the system. And with diarrhea, you want to believe that oral rehydration is all that is okay. So the episode was so serious to the extent that I was down, experiencing diarrhea, experiencing colitis without knowing, and fever unstopping. All of a sudden palpitations started. Source sugar solution was not helpful, and that palpitation was the breaking point. But as God will have it, before the emergency to the hospital, I was able to discover that colitis was there, and with the necessary effort to stop that bacterial colitis was what has brought me alive, seriously speaking, to make this presentation. But the progress made is necessary for us to learn more about malaria parasite. Malaria parasites, when it's now enter into the gastrointestinal tract, that is where it is probably more dangerous. The end point is when it enters the brain. where it can make one start speaking languages that he doesn't understand, and that is the endpoints could cause death. With malaria, children of African descent are usually given vaccine these days, and immunization has really reduced the mortality rate of most of these childhood diseases that really takes their life before 5 years of age. We've celebrated something tremendous in that direction, and that's WHO making. WHO recommendations is also advisable that we check it up, that vaccines are now available only for children. Adults may also take it, but the adults that should take it are advised to be people who live in areas where malaria parasites are not endemic. They believe that the adult in endemic area have partial immunity, and you can then understand why I said we just treat malaria parasite as if it's a child's play. But when you are faced with co-infections and you don't know, the best thing to do is to make it an emergency, straight to the hospital, so that they can perform the necessary tests and do the necessary treatment. The medical laboratory scientist's role in malaria parasite is very, very important, because before you start treatment, you are expected to have performed self-test, probably, or even laboratory test that will do the rapid diagnostic test and show you that you have established malaria in your bloodstream, because it is only that blood stream that really cause that fever. And once you take your blood and you are tested, it will always come out. The other test you need to do to confirm the diarrhea, that is not limited to malaria, because malaria parasite itself can cause diarrhea, but that is something that would not be as dangerous as when it is now, because what you use to treat malaria parasite is different from what you use to treat the bacteria colitis, or where there is even other form of problem that is causing even the diarrhea. We have experiences of typhoid fever and malaria. That's why at times there is this blind treatment of antibiotic and malaria parasite being given. But in these days of antimicrobial resistance, the recommendations are for you to follow the WHO prevention mode, where you try to reduce the vectors. The Anopheles mosquito is the vector, the one that really pass on the parasite, the malaria parasite, to people who get down with malaria fever. And once you have bed nets treated to take care of this, is also another way. And then with the idea that you make it difficult once it is evening time, because the Anopheles mosquitoes are not, they are nocturnal beings. They come out in the night, and so you probably close every entrance to make it difficult for them to come in. But we must continue to enjoy our life, and we cannot, because of mosquitoes, say no. So the Africans are in the sub-Saharan and tropical people who inhabit the tropical regions are already started coping with malaria long before now. And malaria is so difficult to eradicate because it keeps changing. Even if it has been easy, the vaccine would have been given to everybody. But the truth is, malaria continues to mutate. So if you like my presentation, press the like button, subscribe, and more shall be presented unto you.